Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah, the lovely Leah, and Michelle.
The lovely Michelle.
But that doesn't, that's
the
not...
magnificent Michelle. The moving Michelle.
You have to, the moving?
The marvelous Michelle.
The alliteration.
Yeah, my computer's covered with little black hairs.
So,
it's gonna be a great episode.
Today is the 16th of August. It's a Friday. It's our weekly roundup.
Disney faces boycott after Mulan star sides with Hong Kong police. So, what I found incredibly amazing about this on Twitter was that the left and mostly black people were saying, I wasn't going to see Mulan anyways, because whatever, but now that I see that she's siding with the Hong Kong police, then I'm going to boycott it. So it's incredibly heartening to see the left and the right come together and say what's happening in Hong Kong is the right thing for them to stand up for democracy.
But hang on though, because doesn't it kind of show a little bit of ignorance on their part to just lump all police together when they're actually fighting on the same side? I mean, they're fighting against themselves. Okay, the police here in the United States represent freedom, whereas the police in China represent communism, dictatorship, kind of left-leaning policies, socialism, and the like, controlling people, not letting them have freedom, you know.
So, here's the thing. This is what I want you to understand with this, and this, I guess I go my China angle now. So I was going to talk a little bit about China today, because I really want to hammer China. I've always wanted to hammer China. I literally was walking on a walk yesterday. I'm sorry, I have to get up and down because I can't stand for too long, and I can't sit for too long. I was literally walking yesterday praying for my Christian brothers and sisters in China, and I was so angry. No, I don't want custom computers. ABC, could you just leave? I don't know why this is doing this lately, Google. My computer. Go away. Thank you. China has taken over Hollywood.
Yes.
So they love their little war heroes, but they have to be like pro-China. They can't be pro-revolutionary, even though she was a revolutionary, Mulan was.
Right.
So Boycott Mulan is trending after Disney's Chinese-born star, Mulan, Crystal Liu Yifei, offered her support for the brutal Hong Kong police over democracy-seeking protesters. So yes, Michelle, I think that the black people who were, hey, hashtag all police are bad, gets them maybe thinking. Maybe gets it in the right direction.
I think it's great.
Right?
I agree.
Maybe their anger will be put in the right direction. She, to her 65 million followers, I'm sure that China has bought a few. Right?
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
The actress shared an image from China's Communist Party newspaper, The People's Daily, and said, "I support the Hong Kong police. You can beat me up now." She added the hashtag, "I also support the Hong Kong police," with a heart emoji, and it's the sentiment, "What a shame for Hong Kong." And now that the boycott hashtag, as of this writing, is the top trender on Twitter, and almost all the comments reacting are critical, why are people surprised, though? Surprised that anyone associated with Disney would side with brutal communist enforcers over people waving American flags who only want to be free. Disney has been kissing red Chinese for at least a decade. In fact, for the last 10 years, all of Hollywood has openly sold its black soul. It's black soul to the red Chinese. Because Hollywood is run by greedy left-wing tyrants, we have seen movie after movie that portrays this brutal regime as benevolent and heroic. What's more, Hollywood now censors itself, polices itself, and willingly surrenders its own artistic expression to these senseless monsters, and has done so for naked greed. We saw that with, I'm like, why are there so many Chinese people in Star Wars? Like, I don't mind it, but like, there's an agenda here. And you watch a lot of these movies where it's the Americans and the Chinese fighting together. Always the American and the Chinese. China saving the world from big bad robots or aliens or something like that.
Right.
It's getting tiresome. Like, I'm sick of it. Like, it's like, stop already. This is not promoting like the narrative here.
Well, and here's the thing. The issue isn't like, okay, like let's say China owns Hollywood like they do. Okay, we don't have to say that. It is. So China owns Hollywood. Now, if it was just a regular ownership, And it's like, okay, well, you own Hollywood. If you want to insert your Chinese people as heroines of films or heroes of films, then okay, fine. That you own Hollywood, you can do that. The issue is the fact that they literally are brainwashing people. Their agenda is not just that simple. Like, hey, we want to showcase more of our Chinese actors and we want Americans to be more friendly with China. That's not it at all. It literally is an agenda that they are pushing, a brainwashing, and it's not just putting in the Chinese actors and actresses. It's the
they changed the message. They changed the remake of Red Dawn.
Exactly.
They had already shot the film,
right?
And the invaders were the Red Chinese. But they had to change that to North Korea.
Right.
Because of China. So, yay, China. Hong Kong's richest man lectures protesters to love China. Hong Kong newspapers... Hong Kong's wealthiest man, Li Ka-shing, bought a multiple front-page newspaper ads Friday encouraging protesters to love China and love the rule of law. The 91-year-old also apparently paid a man known as the French Spider-Man to unfurl a large red banner showing a unified Chinese Communist and Hong Kong flag and two hands shaking. Lee's front page ads use cryptic language to discourage Hong Kong residents from protesting against the repressive communist state, as they have been doing by the millions since early June. Love China, love Hong Kong, love oneself, love freedom, love empathy, love rule of law. Freedom? Yeah, they do love freedom. Another version of the ad alluded to a Tang Dynasty poem reading, "The melon of the Hung Tai cannot bear the picking again." In the poem, a Tang Dynasty crown prince warns that picking too much fruit off of a healthy melon tree can kill it. Lee appears to be warning that Hong Kong protesters demanding too much freedom from the Communist Party may end up killing off Hong Kong entirely.
So Eric wants to know, so if China owns Hollywood, does that mean that the Illuminati come from the Chinese, or the Chinese are just part of them?
They're not.
I think it's two different. It's a convergence, actually. China doesn't own all of Hollywood. Okay, they've just recently kind of bought into them, like the past, I don't know, I would say like 10...
15, 20 years.
Yeah, something like that. So yes, they're still the Illuminati in Hollywood. I think they're a separate, and now they're kind of joining forces. Actually, I think some of the Illuminati are being squashed by the Chinese agenda, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely.
But that's a very good question.
Okay, where am I?
What do you think, Holly? Hollywood?
Truly frightening how the U.S. relies on China for vital industries.
Come here.
It amazes me how how Chinese government doesn't have a problem with the Chinese printing Bibles or making all these United States flags and United States apparel and things like that. Because I feel like they think, and it does, I think it's dehumanizing anyways, because you don't have the freedom, so it doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
Our country's reliance on China, she might need to go potty.
We took her out.
Okay. For vital industries that are necessary for the United States nation's security is truly frightening. This week, President Trump's administration announced the additional tariffs on China would be delayed into September for some imports and December for others. The plan is to set a 10% tariff on $300 billion worth of Chinese imports, including imported cell phones, laptops, and computer monitors. Everything that we have in life relies on Chinese slave labor. And we talk about this a lot, and I feel like right now is a really good time to really focus on it, because with the Hong Kong protests, there could be a massive push, and we could see a switch. There is absolutely no reason that China has to be communist right now.
Right.
We live in a world of free information and freedom of thought. And if the internet opened up for the Chinese people...
Which, by the way, it's closed. For those of you that don't know, they don't have free internet.
If the internet opened up like it did in Hong Kong for the Chinese people, they would be free. They'd free themselves in an instant. There are more people than there are Chinese government officials. And even the Chinese government officials who know they're brainwashed too. And once you know the truth, like our friend Chi, who came to stay with us, who was from China, whose parents are in the government, had never heard of Jesus. He had heard of Santa Claus and Christmas, but he never heard of Jesus. They had literally, this kid was in his 20s. He went through his whole life and he never heard who Jesus was. and he met some Chinese Christians, and he talked to us, and he sent us a letter, and he came to know Jesus as Savior, and says, why God loved me so much? Because Chinese people, they do want to feel loved.
Right. And
so the government makes it out to be God and says the government loves you and you need to love the government. And they brainwash these kids to be good citizens, and they, you know, when it comes to eating food, it's really, really restricted. And, you know, we can have pop, but not every day. We can have sweets, but not every day. You know, it's like, oh my, what he kept saying was not every day. And he particularly, and he said this was the same for everybody around him, ate really slow. You would take 3 hours to eat your dinner because that's all the food you got, and that was all the things to do. There was nothing to do. Like, we see China, we think that China is, you know, fast paced and video games, and they have all kinds of stuff to do. No. The average person, even with government official kid, has nothing to do. They don't.
Well, that's what automation does, though. Automation makes it so you don't have to do any manual labor for yourself, down to the minutest of things. But in addition to that, communism also squashes creativity. So you're not going to have hobbies like in China.
Exactly. If you're playing the instrument, if you're doing something, it's doing it because you have to be intense about it,
and you have to be like
not because
perfect.
You enjoy it.
Right. So hang on. Stuart the Brit says China's economy is in recession and getting worse. So either they have to trade nicely or get aggressive. Wonder which they will choose. So not only is China's economy in recession, but we're getting ready to go into a recession. You cannot have any more of those. You've had plenty. So there's no wonder that it's all over the world. It's not just China. It's happening because the world is based on the American fiat dollar. What did you
by the way, I wanted to play this. This was one clip you needed to see. That Trump is the most important.
Pastor, you hear Maia lay out the history. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, and I used to, as ambassador, host Codells and congressmen, but I have to put this into some commentary. I mean, this is all about politics as local. Benjamin Netanyahu was under enormous pressure to permit these two congresswomen to come, even though just a few days before their arrival, there was a bipartisan delegation of congressmen led by Steny Hoyer, and these two congresswomen refused to be part of that. I'm no fan of the squad. I believe they were basically going to stir up a lot of mischief during this trip. However, the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu was prepared to let Israel turn into a vassal state for Donald Trump, particularly at a time when Netanyahu only cares about one thing, which is his ability to form a new government if he obtains the mandate that he needs in the September 17th election. All politics is local in Israel, and in Israel, Trump is the most popular person in Israel.
Well, you mentioned that trip. We have some footage there of the top Republicans speaking about what you're referencing, so let's see that for context.
Had I wished that she would have joined, they would have joined all of us, yeah. Join the other freshmen as well. And that we see it together. And when we work on these issues as one body, we have the same experiences that we're looking through. But I think it's healthy that all members come.
And saying, as you said, there may be good faith or strong disagreements about the underlying policy.
So that was an interestingly not so horrible clip from MSNBC. Trump is the most popular person in Israel. You know why? Because they live every day in fear that they're going to be destroyed. They literally have people all around them who want them dead. And you don't live with that, so you don't understand what that's like. Okay?
Let's be inclusive here.
You don't. I already feel bad for them. So, here's another commercial. The man accused of shooting the Philadelphia police has extensive criminal background.
6 counts.
He opened fire on several Philadelphia police officers, wounding 6 and causing a nearly 8-hour standoff. As an extensive criminal background. He turned himself into police. Now everybody says that police just let white men surrender. He's a black man. Police let him surrender.
After shooting 6 cops.
But there are more than enough charges, so Mr. Maurice Hill will never exit a jail. Yeah. And he should not.
Well, okay, so he had a history of violence, of fleeing from police, of drugs. The story there actually goes really, really deep. he should have been convicted and actually should have already been in jail.
Right.
But somehow, who knows how, he got off scot-free in cases that no white person, black person, Hispanic person ever should have gotten off on. Okay? So it's actually way more nefarious than it seems. I don't understand. After reading his criminal record and reading the things that they had against him.
Gun charges. He should have never been able to possess.
Shots fired! Shots fired inside!
So we remember that. That's just the thing. Gun laws on the books should have kept this guy from having a gun. So what it says is that the laws on the books were not being enforced. How did he? Let's see. 2001, when he was 18. He was arrested for possessing a gun with an altered serial number. In 2008, he was convicted of fleeing from police and resisting arrest and pled guilty to illegal possession of firearms. In 2014, he was arrested for a drug possession and false imprisonment. But none of his crimes compared to the 6 charges that he will be serving under. So, speaking of that, the coroner says that the gunman in Dayton, his blood was filled with cocaine, antidepressants, and alcohol.
Wow.
So he definitely was a bomb ready to go off. A pipe device in a clear baggie carrying cocaine was found on his body. And what came out interestingly was a sad obituary from his parents that didn't mention the shooting.
You're kidding.
That didn't mention his sister, and only said he was a bright, happy child.
You're kidding.
They had to issue an apology, realizing the insensitivity of they're grieving the loss of their son. And the obituary didn't seem to indicate that they cared that he killed his sister and 8 other people.
Strange.
I think that's the disconnect that they had from their son, realizing, they obviously were horrible parents. They get like the horrible parent of the year award because they had to know their son was doing drugs. Their son had tried to strangle 2 girls. I mean, he was known for being violent and weird and doing drugs, and you don't see that on your kid.
Well, okay, so I hate to conflate the 2 shootings, but since they happened within, less than 24 hours of each other, in El Paso, that young man's father was a Satanist. Okay,
Yeah.
like a self-professed, you can find video footage of him saying he loves John of God, the Satanist. And the young man, the Dayton shooter, was also seen wearing Satanist patches on his shirt. Mm-hmm. And we know that he was in a porno grind band that was full of violence. Okay, so we do know that there's a connection, at least with the El Paso shooter, whose parent was a psychologist and a Satanist. And that this young man may not have been as intelligent as they are claiming that he was. And then we see the satanic Satanist element here with the Dayton shooter. And I don't want this to come out sounding insensitive or wrong, because there are a lot of good parents out there whose kids go off the rails and they have no, whatever. But I'm just saying that there is a possibility here that the parents also may be. I'm not trying to libel anybody, but I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know anything about them, but it's something worth considering. So I did want to get to this comment from Eric here, because this is kind of like in correlation with what you were saying about Chi, about him not having any knowledge of Jesus. And Eric says, I tried to type this a little earlier, but my phone died. The brainwashing in America is powerful also. I never really knew who Jesus was or what he did, giving his life for all, for sin. And I never knew he died for me. I heard the gospel, and now I am one of his. And I think Kansas can say the same thing. He went to church and didn't know that Jesus died for his sins. Okay. So we do have that same, it's just a little bit different. But it's getting closer to China here in the United States. You're 100% right about that, Eric, which is a far cry from the old Diluter Satan Act, where the only reason they wanted public schools and wanted all children to be able to read so that they could read the Bible for themselves and understand the gospel. Okay, remember, guys, we love you. God loves you. God bless. If you want to send us your letters, P.O. Box 107, Milford, Ohio 45150. We will read them on air unless otherwise notified. So we'll see you back here on Sunday, 2 days from now, at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our European and UK news. It's going to be a good show. Britt Baza has been telling me in the chat that he sent us a message that it would seem that Farage, your favorite Britain mine, has taken up the flagship of fighting the Islamification of the UK. That should be very interesting. I can't wait to check that out. So we shall see. All right, you guys. Good night. Have a wonderful rest of your Friday and Saturday, and we'll see you Sunday.
I was called